Be devastating. For easy ways to make home safer, visit orthoinfo.org/falls. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons and the Orthopedic Trauma Association.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM. 915-544-5876. Or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Maybe if we ever have an in-person event, we'll have a trivia about name all the places that we are live. But in any case, you don't need to know outside of that, because as long as you're, able to hear us, wherever it works best for y'all, that's the right place for you to be. And there's some added functionality in some of those particular outlets. Like if you're with us over on the social media, you can drop those likes, reacts, and comments throughout the program. Already have Robbie Flores and Monica Cervantes over with us on the Facebook. Do appreciate that. We'll be taking those throughout the hour, as well as getting into those phone calls a little bit later. The gremlins, the technical gremlins, and the monkeys and the wrenches and the monkey wrenches appear to have been solved for now. So we're going to give it the old college try back up on the phone lines here during that appropriate segment towards the third segment of this hour here. So if that's your preferred way, the demon should have been banished, but who knows? Things could be pervasive in their own right here. Some of that wet weather we've been happening, apparently, yes, can even affect phone lines, much to my surprise. But, technical and, electrical equipment getting wet, tends to not be a bad thing, as we also have Eric von Holstein Rathlau chiming in with us over on the Facebook page. And a lot to talk about here today, certainly. Not that there's been particularly slow news day lately, particularly for a major city and the intersection of the issues we see here in our region, the entire Borderland region. But just to name a few, last week we mentioned more than a couple of times some serious smuggling attempts, incidents, crashes, including one. I think I still saw the damage on the building right across the street from us, Como's Italian. No blame to them. They're the ones that got crashed into by a van that, was apparently hosting a smuggler trying to bring across people, or had, but trying to continue smuggling them on. But the sum total of that, just for 3 days last week, 21 suspects identified, local police, CBP, immigration authorities, and more identifying this, charged and booked into the El Paso County Jail. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and the amount of incidents, it's hard to know exactly that way. DPS also involved with this, so a multi-level agency response. Continuing to go into that, we'll delve further into that. More also going on with some of those city budgets. We've been talking about, of course, budget setting season, tax setting season, more appropriately, at least in my mind, when it comes to what are some of the factors we're looking at. And so breakdown from El Paso Inc. on what's in the $505 million plan for the city of El Paso. That new budget, $504.8 million, if you really want to split hairs about it, but how much it is over last year and what are some of the key factors of it, plus new analysis out today about how much exactly has cost on some of those other, long-standing issues, I guess you could call it, including for the downtown arena lawsuits, how much that has actually cost El Paso taxpayers. So getting into that as well, and just a whole lot more, including some of those rental issues in our area, big convention up in Las Cruces, more investigation into that fatal Ruidoso fire, and all of that. So, a lot going on here today. We'll begin to those phone lines a little bit later in the program here, so anyone calling in know that, sure, we will get to it. Just don't jump the gun there, and some unhappiness towards the administration on some of these issues we're talking about. We'll certainly take those comments and such. So let's delve right into it. I mean, I kind of gave away the headline here already, but just from our news partners over there at KFOX 14, 21 suspects identified in various human smuggling attempts within 3 days of El Paso. So I think I said in our announcement post of last week, but specifically 3 days of last week, Tuesday to Thursday, a number of incidents. And with that multi-level agency response, 27 individuals were actually arrested, either wanted fugitives, drug offenders, human smugglers, and those operating stash houses. Those types of incidents are, I'm not going to call them atypical, but do, at least until recently, have felt very unusual for us here in the borderland because, well, the way migration patterns and the way people have been approached and tried to cross the border have been changing pretty wildly. I mean, over a course of years, but given the factors of how people thought it was stable previously, definitely has been quite the ride, even just trying to cover this in our area, much less those agencies involved in the enforcement on it here. And so all of these, and also not to just only focus on those arrested, 244 migrants who entered the U.S. illegally was also a part of these investigations. And the variety of what happens with all of this, I mean, just reading off some of the charges here: human smuggling, aggravated assault, and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, wanted for a federal bond violation, felony warrant for arson, human smuggling / possession of marijuana. The vast majority of them here are human smuggling. There's an odd parole violation, possession of a controlled substance, and human smuggling and evading arrest with a vehicle. Also, DPS, as part of that, issued 23 traffic citation and 82 traffic warnings and conducted 5 consensual searches. So the amount of focus that's been happening on this, I mean, the stash houses and the, for lack of a better term, the ditches that have been going on, not talking about anything physical, like, a physical water receptacle, but of either crashing or attempting to ditch, as was, again, just ever since it was brought up in relation to the entire situation in Uvalde and its contribution there of essentially kind of watering down warning reports, because the number of those kinds of incidents that would happen in that border community, contributing in its own way to then what happened at Robb Elementary by, it kind of almost feels like a cry wolf situation in that case, but had not really thought about it that much or heard that much about it in our region until recently. Again, all those charges, all those numbers talking about occurring over 3 days last week. We brought you some of the updates while we're in the midst of it, but it certainly doesn't stop there. I mean, there's a whole lot more. I mean, situations on the border continuing to be just, well, very fraught in general, including some potential major movement going on, well, when it comes to Mexican authorities in general. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, more affectionately sort of known as AMLO, has been taking, it was noted last week by one of our colleagues in reporting here in town, that sure, AMLO was talking directly about that whole situation in Juarez that we delved into a little bit further on Friday, but that he then got a little bit maybe sidetracked by his, say, approval numbers and how the press was covering him. Not sure that was a good look in juxtaposition, but even further than that, now looking at potentially having their National Guard. Again, don't think of them in the same terms as we talk about the United States National Guard. The Mexican National Guard, La Guardia Nacional, is a bit of a different animal in that it was largely geared towards border security, but actually it's now being pushed to now fall more directly under the military, as there have been. I mean, Juarez was a stark example, and the fact of, I mean, sure, anyone who has lived here for any amount of time in El Paso, particularly back, I mean, when I was graduating high school back in the late, 2000s, early 2010s, finishing secondary education and that kind of a thing, it was pretty fraught over there. And I mean, murder capital of the Americas is a phrase I heard used more than a couple of times, but even then, that incident happening in what, or set of them, the circumstances in Juarez feeling very different of just how it went about, as opposed to concentrated, organized crime kind of activities, just the senseless violence nature of it. Maybe I just don't have the right perspective on it, but it felt different, at least in the analysis that we were looking at. And so in response to that, it's not even the only one. There have been other parts of Mexico, a lot of other border cities, including Tijuana, Mexicali, and more, that have been getting more focus. And that's why there has now been this push for that to happen. So what that might actually mean here is a little bit hard to tell exactly. But I mean, Juan Carlos Escobar Lazo saying that this is not unusual. It's just that no one was paying attention to it. Happens every day since many years ago. I mean, I think it would be, it would be a little bit foolish to say that this never happens here just because it doesn't make headlines is one thing, but the sheer amount of it happening lately and the continuation of these incidents. Again, everything we've talked about so far, at least in the local incidents over just 3 days last week, I think it's hard to argue that this isn't to another level potentially here. But that's just one of the set of issues we're talking about and going into here today. Again, a lot of people chiming in over on our social media. John Hertz, Flaco Jimenez, Kathy Codry, that comment from Juan Carlos Escobar Lazo there, John Browselton, Ed Clore, and more. Ed Clore asking, can I interview Bob Moore about our tax increases for the next few decades there? Not necessarily opposed to it. I mean, we talk about some of the reporting here as they are one of the local nonprofit reporting concerns here, but I mean, there's a lot more to get into there. So maybe we'll put it, see what we can do. I mean, we try to be responsive as much as we can feasibly do in any case here. But that's going to bring us already to the first break of this hour right now. A whole lot more to get to, including some of those budget issues from some of our other reporting partners and such out there. So for that first break of the hour, you're, of course, tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Coming out of this break, delving more into some of those budget numbers, as well as more of the circumstances involved in them, what may or may not be kind of contributing to them. So in any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway North at Sean Haggerty, a major crash involving 5 vehicles there has got the right lane closed. El Paso Fire is on the scene. Downtown South Mesa Street at 9th Avenue, there's an injury accident. Eastbound I-10 is reduced to 1 lane from Artcraft to Montoya, and Donovan Drive has roadwork closing the left lane between Thorne and Red in both directions. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson Podcast.
Democrats declare war on all conservatives who doubt the FBI, now claiming you're a domestic terrorist. Coming up on the Ben Ferguson Podcast, we'll look at the Mar-a-Lago raid and why it may have been illegal. Download the Ben Ferguson Podcast now.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Once again, we were El Paso's #1 dealer in new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram sales in July. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas.
How did you do that again?
We have the best inventory and the best prices in town with exceptional trade-in values.
You heard the boss. Get big savings on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. Save thousands in interest with 0% APR for 72 months on new 2022 Dodge Chargers and Challengers. Plus, huge savings and super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on 2022 Ram trucks. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This a Summer event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus detail. 0 APR is $13.89 and 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. Regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Search you make, every click you take, they'll be watching you.
Tired of companies like Google and Facebook watching everything you do online? There's actually a simple solution. DuckDuckGo. It's an all-in-one privacy app with a built-in private search engine, web browser, one-click data clearing, email protection, and more, all for free. Download the app today and get the most comprehensive privacy protection with the push of a button. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. I always appreciate when people give me notes on how to refer to them here, such as I own. Yes, I did get that email and have some of your concepts in mind there. Appreciate it. And Eric Von Holstein Rathlow and Juan Carlos Escobar Lazo, who's saying I can just call him JC. Again, I appreciate it. It's just it's helpful and makes it feel a bit more personalized there. Some more comments coming in, including John Browston about want to talk today. He's talking about ABC 7 Extra on Channel 7 last night on housing appraisals and taxes. Of course, we mentioned that a little bit last week, but some of the coverage we were mentioning there by Bob Moore, he's the editor/publisher, technically, definitely editor over at El Paso Matters, again, the local nonprofit reporting concern in town. Also, involved with like the community foundation, things like that. John more accurately saying that not sure what Bob's background is, but I know he was interesting and seemed to know a lot about what he was talking about. Well, Bob Moore used to be the editor of the El Paso Times, among other things, before various waves of things there. I don't usually like to comment on other local media in town or what's kind of their inside baseball thing, besides being feels a little bit rude, but also just kind of way too inside baseball, to be honest with you. But yes, used to be the editor of the El Paso Times before moving on to start other projects, including this here. So yeah, we've had him on the show previously as well, not in terrifically recent years. I'll be honest, I don't have a date exactly in mind, but yeah, we've had some interesting conversation with him as well about many of these subjects. So yeah, again, I appreciate the suggestion there, as well as JC saying also it's more noticeable with all these smuggling attempts and, potential prosecutions going on with them, because smugglers are being more bold since they are not getting any consequences for their action, saying specifically New Mexico will not prosecute them due to the politics of their courts here. I mean, definitely a lot more focus, I do feel, is on it here. I'll be honest, I'm not as familiar with the progression of New Mexico courts here, but gotta wonder if that's maybe being reconsidered given the sheer amount of things going on here. Heck, all the stuff we were talking about today is just out of the Texas side of things, and I can't imagine they're having a much better time. But then again, immigration patterns have always been different within, the New Mexico boot heel and parts of that as well. So we got a lot more to get into there, but on to those appraisals and those parts of them anyway, there's definitely a lot more to be said, because the appraisals going into the tax rates and then, into what the impact of tax rates would have, I guess. It's the foundation, the tax rate decide how much of the, pound of flesh, slice of pie, however you decide to put it there, come out of it. But ultimately, it's the budgets that end up really setting it here. So breaking down into the budget, El Paso Inc. with a very good breakdown as of this week on, and their latest edition, of course, here was in the $505 million plan for El Paso on the city budget here. That does include they call it a roughly 6% increase, or $28.6 million compared to 2022. And there is going to be a public hearing at City Hall on Tuesday for that. Again, $504.8 million general fund budget. Now, you may be wondering, because I usually have the concern in mind that I kind of consider whenever I'm looking at, individual way we're going to decide how the city of El Paso works. I usually think of it kind of shorthand in my mind as essentially a $1 billion corporation, and why we've had some of those discussions in the past of who do you want leading that and what kind of qualifications do you want them to have. Some of those, since we've started having those discussions, debates have been more or less settled, with the city now having a more or less standardized way of compensation for city council members, even if the compensation of, shall we say, the top of the board there, not even talking about the elected officials, but the city manager has been in more stark contention lately, or at least recently. In any case, some of the four main areas pointed out by El Paso Inc. that are the focus of this budget is lowering of the tax rate, which has been going on and has been being proposed, though it's not quite at, as has also been pointed out, some of those 2019 levels, which I'd prefer to return to, but also public safety, completing the 2012 quality of life bond projects and addressing a high number of vacancies within the city. Now, that may be one of the more obvious ones, except for, of course, when you get to except for when we start thinking about what's going on. Some of the comments going on here about nicknames and such are interesting. Again, it's worthwhile to see the comments over on our social media if you ever get the chance or have the available. If you're driving, don't do it. Have a passenger or wait till you get home, because the comments stay up is also the nice thing there. It serves as our archive. But so, yeah, those vacancies, that's been pretty well widespread publicized. Not necessarily as we have vacancies, how good for us or anything like that, but then very much focused on both from the city side and from some of our local reporting partners as well on, okay, what's going into that. You may have heard about those, hiring bonuses, how they work out, that if you do hire on, you get essentially half of it up front, and then the other half of it, I think it's about $1,000, but it can vary slightly depending on which position you're looking at. And you get it after a period of some months, again, depending on the position, usually about like 6 or 9 or maybe the full year, to encourage you to stick around, among other things. One of the more obvious ways we've been talking about it anyway has been when it comes to lifeguards, both from the city, and we've even talked about that from the county side of things, just not having that availability. So the proposed budget reduces the tax rate after valuation by about 4.5 cents. And again, that's that number per $100 of valuation. So even if there was still some kind of maybe awkward phrasing that didn't play out that well with those that aren't very much focused on how taxes are set, which, given the way voting happens in El Paso, I feel like more people understood what was actually going on with taxes and how they're set, we'd have a lot more people voting. So I'm just going to say the level of understanding probably represents the voter turnout here in El Paso. Not exactly a scientific estimate, but it's the way I'm going to run with it anyway. And so, yeah, that announcement of them, we're dropping it 4.5 cents. To someone who doesn't understand how the taxes work may think, so you're dropping our taxes by 4.5%? Whoop-de-doo. I mean, sure, it does end up adding up here, even if there are, with the more valuation, they're still looking at a increase, again, according to El Paso Inc. here, in their calculations, by about 6.1%. So, sure, taxes decreasing in the rate, the amount you're paying in taxes increasing. So that's why, again, that also the aspect of that kind of chest-thumping announcement being made was a little bit, nonsensical to me here. But then, of course, there are some of those things that have including changed when it comes to homestead exemptions and other things, including those for over 65. But they are still looking at maybe a little bit more there. So a little bit more both increase, but also, yeah, you talk to your tax professional, we'll make sure you got it over here. I'm not going to qualify for that one for quite some time here. But more specifically, I had mentioned to you that there was that date a couple of weeks ago, maybe better part of a month at this point, when it was that the Central Appraisal District had put up some of these certified values. We mentioned that a little bit last week when it came to, well, some of the reporting coming out from, again, El Paso Matters with Bob Moore over there on the valuations and the continuing process of, well, reevaluating homes. Those appraisals usually only happening every so often, about 3 years or so, looking like it'll continue to be happening about every year or so, at least through next year, and has been going on here. But so the actual amount set by the Central Appraisal District, again, according to El Paso Inc. here, that the amount that actually, the amount that, well, the city pays there, but also the amount that has come from that, about $4.5 million. So the amount that actually going into it, public safety being kind of the lion's share of the total amount there. And Kathy Codry over in the comments there upset about on her insurance and raising premiums by about $300 per year. Yeah, I mean, costs are continuing to increase or at least change in weird ways. I wouldn't be surprised if even of those of us who haven't necessarily noticed an absolute increase going on there, there might be a little bit more going on with maybe services. I mean, the whole factors of shrinkflation or skimpflation, where you're paying the same but getting less. The most concentrated way I can think of that is if you've noticed ice in the last, let's call it a year. Ice in stores, the nice bagged ice, that the price hasn't necessarily risen, but you're definitely getting less of it, going with that just numerically frustrating 7 pounds of ice, as opposed to the nice, 10 or 20 pound bags we're used to. And that's part of the way they confound it, because of course, if they had gone down to like 5 pounds, you'd be like, wait, I'm getting half as much for the same price. That would have been very noticeable. But also the fact that 7 doesn't really divide nicely into 10 or 20 or anything like that, making those calculations just a little bit more confounding. Yeah, I'm not saying that it can't be figured out. Just for the average person may think, oh, well, it's not that much of a change if they notice it at all. So yeah, that does definitely keep being thought about and figured out there. So just all of the stuff that is going on with our property taxes. And that one further point that is being made, of course, is Well, some of the things that have gone into the cost, not necessarily on this budget, but in general. Tell you what, we're due for that next break already right now. Geez, comes on a little bit too soon sometimes. And getting into that, some of the costs that have been looked at whenever it comes to the actual downtown arena litigation. A sizable amount there as well. Not quite the amount of the increase we're looking at here, but whether it's been worth it or not, certainly up for debate. So we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, getting into those further points, and probably at the end of the next segment, we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines. And in case you are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM, I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Back after this break with more. Again, comments over on the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Getting into some more of those after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. As monkeypox spreads across the country, El Paso Public Health Authorities say they've confirmed the county's first case of the virus. On Friday, health officials identified the patient as a woman in her 50s. While some may be feeling a little anxious or concerned after hearing about the first case of the monkeypox, infectious disease expert Dr. Ogachika Alozi says there's no reason for the general public to panic. Monkeypox symptoms include swollen lymph nodes, fever, and a rash that may be initially mistaken for chickenpox or a sexually transmitted disease. So if you believe you might have the monkeypox, El Paso's health authority says you should see your doctor and they will then decide if you need to be tested. Of course, always remember, you can stay up to date with what's happening in our area by signing up for our CBS 4 newsletter. Just go to cbs4local.com/sign up to get started. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Big backup on Gateway North at Sean Haggerty. A 5-vehicle accident there blocking the right 2 lanes and causing a 25-minute backup. Sean Haggerty back to Trans Mountain. Expect delays on the Gateway North this afternoon. A crash reported Gateway West at North Yarborough Drive, and a crash with injuries North Mesa Street at Mesa Hills. Take Sunland Park or North Festival Drive instead. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We've been pretty quiet for the most part through the weekend and to start off the week, but things are about to take a real big change as we deal with some tropical moisture moving in from the southeast. This is going to increase our rain chances significantly through the week and decrease those temperatures. A weather warning is expected through the week as a result. Log on to kfoxtv.com for the latest radar and latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Right now, Crayola 24-count crayons and 4-ounce Elmer's glue are just 50 cents each. Plus 1-inch binders are only $1.99. In-store only offer ends 8/26, limit 30. Don't send your kids back to school, send them forward at Staples.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
This week, Red Pilled America delves into the story behind what really happened with President Nixon. Understanding the ignored truth behind his story reveals a dark mission you need to know about. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in there on the very many diverse set of circumstances and stories we're going into today here already. A lot of things affecting us here in the Borderland and beyond, as we usually get to as well. So some of those comments coming in: Kathy Codry, John Brousselton, RJ, Maria Coleman, Eric von Holstein Rathwell, Flaco Jimenez, Juan Carlos Escobar Lazo. I just say it when I do it this time, just to mention the name here. When I'm just reading your comments, we'll put it up differently. John Hertz, Ed Clore, Edmundo Carlos, as well as more. And dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate Matt Olson, Ida Beza Gardner, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. At least one from earlier I didn't want to say. I missed out on John Hertz putting blame for that spate of incidents last week and continuing on squarely on the administration. It's saying that every one of those criminals and the damage they cause is, I am not going to be able to read that number effectively, but it's a 1 followed by at least a dozen zeros % Joe Biden's fault. And some of the consternation over border security has been very focused on, even if a lot of what's going to be coming up in the next weeks and months. I know that there's essentially a nationwide tour, not sure if it's going to come anywhere near our area, on the signing of the whole Inflation Relief Act and the many, many, many parts that would argue aren't necessarily related to that. But I don't get to set the act names. Otherwise, well, I might want to do a little more truth in advertising. Let's just put it that way. But there's also a whole lot more. They're going to be focusing on that. I wouldn't be too surprised there. But John Browson saying the Houston oil man and UTEP professor, I think referring to Grossman there, just as a correction, should be sued for recovery of all the legal fees that the city has to pay to defend the downtown special event center, also known as the the Special Events and Performing Arts Center. I'm forgetting the actual acronym that's been being used for that. The downtown arena, put a little bit more simply and a little bit more commonly, I think for a lot of people there would make it that's what most people would recognize it as. I am positive here. And referring to there again, Max Grossman, not technically related to, he's made pretty clear that it's separate from any involvement he has as a professor and professionally, but rather as a historic preservationist. And a Houston preservationist, J.P. Bryan, is noted by El Paso Matters as a major part of it. And more specifically, Grossman did decline to comment on the legal expenses here, because El Paso Matters out this week with the title of the article, Downtown Arena Lawsuit Cost El Paso Taxpayers $3.3 million. Now, I'm not even saying that the argument is without merit on that part here, but I think that this number is probably going to be shocking more than a few people, because since this has been going on since, not exactly 2012, but the better part of that whole period, as we're on, essentially, let's just call it the 10th anniversary of that, even though that 2012 quality of life bond, whether it was actually passed or not actually in 2012, I mean, we can quibble over the details all we want here, but it's been 10 years since at least the enumeration of it, and some of the core parts of the argument came down there to was the idea of actually sports. And the core argument, as part of the lawsuit anyway, essentially was whether or not the way that the city began talking about it was actually what was on the ballots. And so the the Multi-Purpose Performing Arts and Entertainment Center is what it's been technically getting called, if I'm not mistaken. But then also the amount of money for that, we've talked a little bit at recent points, that there's been more study going on into that, including that, I want to call it better part of $750,000 anyway, for a firm to do some analysis, do some further community interest kind of thing here. And it's actually been since 2017, so not exactly the full 10 years, but pretty close here. And so in order to do that, it's been significantly how much more it would cost here amongst that already there. Again, El Paso Matter starting as city attorney Carla Neiman saying that she cannot say how much longer the litigation might last or how much more the legal fees will add up to. There is no cap on the legal costs here. Now to John's suggestion about countersuing there, I'm I'd be a little bit dubious about the legal potential there. Might have to ask some of our local legal experts on that, because suing because you didn't like someone's lawsuit, not sure that would, I mean, you can file just about anything you want to. Whether a judge will accept it or not is another thing. And I get more that this is probably based on not necessarily legal reasoning, not that I'm accusing you of not being reasoned in it, but that's the idea that there has been a lot of expenditure, time, money, interest, etc. Yeah, I could understand feeling frustrated with that. I feel like most of the people I talk with on this whole issue are pretty evenly split, of course, depending on the subset. I mean, we do deal with historic preservation on our programming here and some of those aspects. So I'm going to say it skews more towards that end with those types of inclined people. But in general public, random person on the street kind of thing, which I have also gone out and done, not necessarily within the last couple of years, but previous, even when these lawsuits were going on and continuing to move forward, kind of I'm not going to say totally apathy, though there's, of course, just look at the voting public here in El Paso, and apathy is absolutely a predominant emotion. But for those at all aware of the issue, I want to say it was decently evenly split, surprisingly enough for me. I was frankly expecting a whole lot of people to either be completely apathetic or, why are we holding it up? Just do it if we're going to do it. But the amount of people saying that, well, I think there is merit or concern to it, and I have concerns about just bulldozing a neighborhood and those kind of aspects. So I'm not saying they're totally on board with the historic preservation argument going on there, but with the idea of being able to move in and more on the eminent domain side of things. So the fact that it has actually spent that, and is also being noted by El Paso Matters that the city is about $155 million of the $180 million budget left, according to city documents. And the question on what that would actually buy here, again, better part of 10 years later, is a pretty serious one. And John Brazelton saying he wants to move forward with it, absolutely. And also some other comments coming in about how much things cost right now. RJ also noted that car repos are about to hit the roof like never before. And on the idea of a cost for insurance, they might be anticipating all that lost income here. Maybe, maybe not. I know that we, at least personally, kind of lucked out when it came to that. We had a car we were doing some work on. Unfortunately, the shop we were working with actually did close as a part of it. So we kind of sat on it for a little bit too long in a semi-functional state, and with full and complete transparency about the issues with it, went and sold it to a big name that you'd likely recognize. Just consider it a organization that very much publicly buys cars in order to resell them. Got, again, not quite double blue book for it. So whether or not that's been sustainable, I had toyed with the idea of doing maybe a car flipping, as much the same vein of like house flipping, buy one of those umpteen cars you see on any drive around El Paso with the for sale sign of it. I literally saw 3 on my way in today. Buying that, fixing it up, and then turning around and selling it to that. Anytime you see that kind of underwaterness, I feel like it's, in terms of finances, I feel like it's not going to last that long here. So John Browston correcting his statement, move on and put the two historical buildings in the museum and move forward here. I think that's at least part of the argument here, but whether or not it can actually do it, I mean, the ball whose court is in is a little bit confusing here. El Paso Matters actually answering that question as well, saying that the recent appeal to the state Supreme Court, if accepted, will determine whether Grossman, as a private citizen, has a right to sue the city in 2019 for acquiring a permit from the Texas Historical Commission to conduct a required archaeological survey. So there's more on this, and it's previously ruled the Third Court of Appeals that the Historical Commission's favor on the same legal issue. But, I mean, it could be handed back to a trial court. So the short answer is it's not exactly clear whether or not this will move forward or move up. But given that there's been some movement, again, at the very least on the city side, in terms of continuing to investigate costs, interest, what could go into it, yeah, we'll see what actually. So it's only time will tell, unfortunately, in this particular case. And, well, the decisions of the individuals involved in it here. So that's going to go ahead and take us through that next break right now. We're at this point, as we usually do at this point during the show, we will go ahead and open up the phone lines as well. Because if you're wanting to comment, chime in on the many issues we're discussing here today, RJ saying that Noah family buying 50 cars a day. Not surprised. Again, I had the idea. I'm sure someone better suited for it would have had the idea as well. But we're going to go ahead and open up that phone line there. So if you wanted to get on that line, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Does appear we have banished the phone line gremlins, but if we're having any issues, just try to call back here, as apparently there are some monkey wrenching going on the back end, even outside of this building, Wet weather has consequences, folks. Any case, back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An earlier crash on Gateway North involving 5 vehicles still blocking the right lane at Sean Haggerty Drive and still causing a backup. It's not as bad as it was, but you've still got some spotty stop-and-go traffic all the way back to Sun Valley Drive. South Desert Boulevard southbound at Las Muchas Drive, a stalled truck's blocking the left shoulder, and police are on the scene of an injury accident North Mesa Street at Mesa Hills Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Dog days of summer got your business needing help? Check out Indeed, an all-in-one hiring solution that makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 toward your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price and deadline you agreed to, he'll buy it from you himself. You're not going to find another real estate agent in El Paso who is that invested in getting your home sold. He's the only one I'd call. Google Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S. Read over 400 five-star reviews because I'm not the only one who knows you should call Brian Birds. Google Brian Birds or just check out brianbirds.com.
Illegal fentanyl is up to 100 times more potent than morphine. A tiny amount is all it takes to cause an overdose. It could be in your drugs, and you wouldn't be able to see it, taste it, or smell it. Learn more at cdc.gov/stop-overdose.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
We'll bring you the story of the Baltimore Colts, the football team that helped revitalize Baltimore and kickstart the NFL, but also broke the city's heart. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on all of those. Of course, we also have that phone line open, which, knock on wood, still seems to be avoiding the gremlins, the demons banished, and the monkeys and the wrenches working properly. Again, hopefully. It's not even apparently happening in our building. Pulling back the curtain there for you because, yeah, some of that wet weather. Copper, when wet, doesn't necessarily immediately rust. I mean, there is corrosion that can happen, but let's say wet electronics, wherever they may be, tend to impede things. So no leaks that we noticed in our building, but given the fact that these are interconnected systems, yeah. And we're not on those voice over IP, or my preferred way of saying it, VoIP yet. Maybe when we start getting some upgraded facilities here before too long. A lot of commentary coming in, among other things. That Inflation Reduction Act mentioned there, and that nationwide tour that'll probably be coming with it. And Matt Olson putting it a little bit more pointedly that we might not avoid all the gremlins on the phone here. That's more of a opinion-based issue than a technical one, though I'm sure some will be arguing with me on the technicality of it anyway. But some of the other issues we're talking about here as well actually reminded me that RJ mentioning about buying of junkers of cars. I mean, even in the midst of all this, that does make me curious now what's been going on with the cars being exported to Mexico. There have been, geez, I even went out there sometimes when aduanas on the Mexican side of things changed their policies about how the importation could go. They've ever been wondering why you see all of those in-tow cars pretty constantly around our areas because of otherwise junker or wrecked cars in our area being exported to Mexico for then basically rebuild and refit down there because different policies and just relative values. Yeah, it's an interesting quirk of our area. So I wonder how that has the whole price of used has been affecting that, if at all. I feel like it's kind of probably different markets, but yeah, I've been known to be surprised on occasion. So let's go back to those phone lines here. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Frankie on Messi on the line with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right. I love it. I had to wait all weekend before you came back on. You realize how depressing that is? Anyway, right out of the box, I did some studying because I could do that because I'm not a poorly educated Donnie Dotard supporting troglodyte. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I want to tell you and everybody else out there in the Southwest border region, there will not be another civil war. Why? Because it's going to be shut down by economics. All the big money bag people, all the powerful capitalists and all this other kind of stuff, they're not going to allow it to happen. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, you guys in Texas, oh, hika, baby, because you already owe the bus people, the contractors already $7 million for your bus stuff up to wherever you're going with that stuff. So you got your discount on your property tax. Guess what? You're going to be paying it right back again because you owe that money. Now, what do you think of them apples?
I mean, yeah, the fact that all the taxes in Texas come through the property taxes tends to mean that, if we're taking it in the shorts anywhere, it usually comes from that angle. I will say that I had won that, $500 million lottery ticket, would have definitely preferred to take it in Texas because of the lack of you still have property. You still have, they're going to take their chunk of it, make no mistake, but I feel like it would have been better in the long run. In any case, to your idea about it continuing to focus on there, yeah, that's not going to be a surprise. We're focusing primarily on the city side of things, though, of course, we have not too far removed from the horizon as I continue to discount the idea of there being any special session, given the amount of calls that have already happened for it, the fact that the governor seems to be completely uninterested in doing it. Governor Greg Abbott at least has made no indication that he is even considering it there, whether disinterested or not, and that power lies entirely with him. I think we're looking at the regular, legislative session that happens every 2 years coming up next year, starting pretty early January. So a lot of work on that has already been going on. So sure, the many local entities that we're talking about, the city, the county hospital district, and of course the other aspects, some of those special taxing districts, water districts, community college, all of that. All of those in aggregate are going to be, it's not like a million ducks nibbled to death by, but like 5 really big ones. But of course, the state setting its own and what those property taxes will be significant in its own right. So what they're actually looking at, I do know that there has been, at least from the state side of things, maybe not property tax discounts. They changed some of the formulas, particularly for the homestead exemptions for those 65 and older, or those of the special categories, such as, surviving widows of service members, first responders, etc. But more specifically, that the Texas, even in the midst of the pandemic, that they're expecting quite the, deficit they were going to have to make up. Have not seen, I'm not going to call it exactly a windfall, but closer to a surprise surplus. Not maybe absolutely, but in some of these like excise funds, sales tax, those kind of things that are more focused on not property, but also not exactly income. So some of that calculations is probably going to be a major focus of among the many other issues coming up of this next legislative session, is how they're actually going to deal with that.
Well, I hear you on that, but listen, when I talk about Texans, I talk about all Texans, less El Pasoans, because they are normal Texans. But I want to tell you, you guys, you Texans, are running right straight into a huge maelstrom. You need to get your act together and get on the same change with the rest of the civilized society. So that's what I want to say. And I appreciate you coming back on Monday.
Yeah, well, we're definitely here as much as possible as we can be. So thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Have a good one there. Again, we had some mild phone issues last week, including some of our posts here and some honestly kind of cockamamie plans that we had to try and work around it. But we're back here and working as much as possible. If we have any issues, just feel free to call back, because again, we do have those phone lines open now and through the end of the show here. 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. A lot of comments about the commentators here and the relative positions here. I'll tell you what, as opposed to trying to short shift someone on the next one, we're going to take that next break here in just a minute. Just one further point I did want to make here, because I had mentioned it but didn't have it pulled up in front of me here, about what's going on in Mexico, of that of, again, AMLO, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, president of Mexico, trying to, well, the title from El Paso Inc. and from the AP, Mexican president to bypass Congress to keep army in streets. So as much as, yeah, we talk about the idea of the civil war and things, but some of the other cities that were having very specific issues as of last week as well, notably Tijuana and other areas, of course, what happened in Juarez itself here. A lot of focus on that, and probably going to continuing on. So the issues south of the border do continue to grow and change and potentially affect us here. So let's and more commentary. We're going to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, more calls on the line. They may be filled up at the moment, but we'll see what we get to. More comments coming in as well. And RJ saying, yeah, Dollar Tree soon to be $5 tree. Hope not, but I won't hold my breath on it either. In any case, talking about all that and more coming out of this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number one more time before this top of the hour, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Stay tuned. Back in a minute.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An earlier crash on Gateway North involving 5 vehicles still blocking the right lane at Sean Haggerty Drive and still causing a backup. It's not as bad as it was, but you've still got some spotty stop-and-go traffic all the way back to Sun Valley Drive. South Desert Boulevard southbound at Las Muchas Drive, a stalled truck's blocking the left shoulder, and police are on the scene of an injury accident North Mesa Street at Mesa Hills Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean. Mike, gotta go.
Eee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station. Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. With an open channel.
I guess just try to keep channels open.
We welcome open-minded individuals.
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
With open arms.
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
For open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world. Wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook.
The Justice Department is resisting the unsealing of the affidavit behind the search warrant for former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. In a new court filing Monday, the DOJ said its disclosure would irreparably harm the government's ongoing criminal investigation. The Inflation Reduction Act will be signed into law by President Biden tomorrow. A White House statement said the measure will lower prescription drug prices in addition to fighting climate change. Two former Minneapolis police officers found guilty of violating George Floyd's civil rights are rejecting a plea deal offered by state prosecutors. Lisa Taylor reports.
J. Alexander King and Tu Tao appeared this morning at a state appeals hearing and were offered a deal to plead guilty to aiding and abetting manslaughter in Floyd's death. Their state trial is set for October 24th.
The federal civil trial over pictures taken at the scene of the Kobe Bryant helicopter crash continues, with a former fire department captain being called to the stand. The retired captain is accused of taking photos that had no legitimate business purpose. Vanessa Bryant, along with Chris Chester, who lost his wife and 13-year-old daughter in the crash, are suing for negligence and invasion of privacy over the photos. Charter buses full of illegal immigrants continue to roll from the Texas border to New York City. Republican Congressman Ronnie Jackson says the mayor of the Big Apple shouldn't complain.
He's upset because he's had several thousand people that have shown up in New York City. Brian, we get over 6,000 a day that we know of.
Home Run Inn Frozen Pizza is recalling frozen meat pizza products after the U.S. Department of Agriculture said the food may be contaminated with foreign material, including metal. The recall applies to frozen 33.5-ounce cartons containing Home Run Inn Chicago's premium pizzeria deluxe sausage classic pizza. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Taxpayers in Georgia will no longer be covering the cost of breakfast and lunch for every school child. Rebecca Hughes reports.
Before the COVID-19 pandemic, nearly 60% of all Georgia public school children were eligible for free or reduced price meals. During the pandemic, a federal program used tax dollars to cover the public school food bill, allowing schools to provide meals at no charge to all students, regardless of income, for most of the past 2 years. Schools across the state are now notifying parents about the reinstated application requirement so that kids will not go hungry. The National School Lunch Program's community eligibility provision began in its current form in 2015 to help children in the nation's highest poverty schools and districts. I'm Rebecca Hughes.
A British author known for his novel The Horse Whisperer is dead. Nicholas Evans died after suffering a heart attack last week. His hit novel sold 20 million copies around the world and was a bestseller in 20 countries. The Horse Whisperer was adapted into a film in 1998 by Robert Redford and starred Scarlett Johansson and Sam Neill. He was 72 years old. A live-action Pac-Man movie is in the works. Mark Mayfield has the details.
Actor Justin Baldoni's production company, Wayfarer Studios, is behind the film based on the arcade game, as well as Bandai Namco Entertainment, the creator of Pac-Man. The untitled movie is being written by Chuck Williams, who brought Sonic the Hedgehog to the big screen. No details about when the film will be released were announced.
Fans of Seinfeld are feeling like they scored a hole-in-one this week. 3 players paired at the USGA's U.S. Amateur Championship in New Jersey have the same last names of characters on the iconic TV show. The threesome at the Ridgewood Country Club features Mark Costanza, Hazen Newman, and Campbell Kramer. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance at $1,000 and a trip to our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival. Text the nationwide keyword festival to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's festival to 200-200.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
This week, Red Pilled America delves into the story behind what really happened with President Nixon. Understanding the ignored truth behind his story reveals a dark mission you need to know about. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. Save money on gas this summer by observing the speed limit. Gas mileage usually decreases rapidly at speeds above 50 miles per hour. And on average, each 5 miles per hour you drive over 50 miles per hour is like paying an additional 30 cents per gallon for gas. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
All right, everybody in the car, let's go.
What are we going to do first when we get there, Mom? Go for a hike?
Sure, if you want.
What about canoeing? Can we go canoeing too?
I don't see why.
What about a bike ride? No, I want to fish.
Oh,
I've never been fishing.
honey, we can do it all.
How long does it take to get to the forest?
It's not.
Is it going to be long?
No, sweetie.
I bet it takes forever.
It's not that far.
Are we there yet?
Yep, we're here.
Already? No way. Come on, come on.
El Paso's
It's a
News
short
Radio
drive from your
690
neighborhood to your
KTSM.
neighborhood. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a neighborhood park or green space near you. Also, find fun activities to do like boating and biking or camping and hiking, plus much more. It's all right in your neighborhood. A public service announcement brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, and a lot of issues and other things going on here. And more detail actually coming out even as of this hour, including that situation you'll be hearing from our news partners over there at KFOX 14 about a vehicle that crashed into El Paso Canal this morning. And some of the impacts of it when it would collide with a Border Patrol vehicle was conducting a separate traffic stop here, and just a whole lot more. So, yeah, those situations continue to evolve here. And some of the mention coming in, someone asking if the fly-by-night car dealer across from the studio is still in operation. I haven't noticed anything here. There's been a lot of turnover renovation going on in some of the strips, strip malls across from us here. So I have not necessarily noticed because I've not been interested in a. Okay, I'll be honest. I did one trip down Alameda back in the day, being like, yeah, I've heard there are cheap cars here. And one of the salespeople at one of those places, I'm not going to name who, / I probably don't even remember, said that, yeah, these are all salvage titles. Are you sure that's what you're interested in if you're looking for a used car? And I was like, oh, okay. I get it now. So he was actually very helpful to me in that way. Or maybe I just looked like that was more trouble than I was worth here. So let's just say I don't pay a whole lot of attention to those. So maybe I know there was at least one car mechanic, but the amount of turnover that happens over there or renovation, yeah. Anyway, at least one of the things brought up here as well. RJ saying 435 cases being dismissed by DA because they didn't file charges in time. Healthy crime supply chain, no shortage of criminals being mentioned here. I know I'm aware of at least 40 by one magistrate judge, even just today, being reported on in the local area. So, yeah, I think there are some further issues that we'll be delving into here. Not enough information out by our airtime today, but we got a whole lot more we'll get into in the, other week of shows here. So, in any case, we do have that phone line open, of course, here. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank Frankie for saying the Republicans, the capitalists, are not going to allow a civil war. Thank you, Frankie. But anyway, I was calling about what's happening in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at some of the Customs and Border Protection stats.
Right.
And what was frightening is July 20th and 21st, there was 78 pounds of methamphetamines and cocaine confiscated. I mean, that is just frightening. And then if you want to come down to the first 9 days in August, that's even more frightening. On the 9th, they had 11 illegal immigrants in a SUV.
Right.
They were stuffed in the SUV. Imagine that. And then the day afterwards, there were 10 more in a small economy car. And then on the 10th and the 12th, here we go, they had 9 in a car. And on the 12th, there were 8. And in all instances, the illegal immigrants were medically treated and processed. My question is, okay, they were processed, and then what? And the drivers of the vehicles, all of them with the exception of one, were detained because it's a federal crime to transport illegal immigrants or smuggling. Only one of them was detained, and I'm assuming he's going to go back to Mexico because he is from Mexico. Now, the last 8 that for August the 12th were expelled to Mexico under Title 42.
Right.
But, Congressman Tony Gonzalez has it right. He just stated that he was in El Salvador and Honduras, and he asked them, what would it take to repatriate those that don't qualify for asylum here in the United States from their countries? And both presidents told him one call from the president. Neither of them have had any calls from President Biden regarding illegal immigration and their citizens being repatriated. So it's astonishing that Biden and Mayorkas, and let's put our representative in there, would even think that a new route from Colombia to Panama or fast passes on Mexico's southern border or $170 million contract with Vera Institute would have any impact on the cartels right at our back door. How do they think that what they're doing is going to deter a multi-billion-dollar trafficking and smuggling industry that this administration themselves have created? They are fighting themselves for routes into the U.S. to continue what they're doing. There's nothing other than building a wall and getting serious about enforcing our laws that the cartel is going to understand and respect like they did under President Biden. And 2 more years of this is just, I don't know, incredible that we would survive it. But you know what? We've got to. And I just urge the voters again, go vote. Listen to what our Congresswoman supports. How safe do you feel? We just had a wreck this morning here in Upper Valley. I don't know if they were illegal immigrants or not, but they're investigating it. But in any event, we have stash houses everywhere that every week we're being told about it.
Right.
We're not safe. Even driving, I was at the FedEx this morning, and the owner was telling me that he had gone to one of the service stations on Mesa, and he was pumping gas, and all of a sudden, all these vehicles, Border Patrol, Sheriff, and police, surround another vehicle, and he said they started opening the vehicle up, and they were illegal immigrants coming from the back of the truck and in the truck. So we're not safe. And our representative needs to understand that. I have sent her 2 emails expressing my concern, and I sent her some articles on what is happening in our border. And if she's aware of it, surely she is. She's our representative. And what her feelings on this is. Because we need to start asking the people that want our vote. She doesn't have mine, that's for sure. But those of you who are going to or anticipate voting for her, you need to be asking questions. How safe are we? You know, and this $1 billion, I don't know, build back bankruptcy bill that they passed, you need to ask her some very important questions because it's not going to benefit the small people. So we need to be aware and go vote in November and vote all these people out that don't benefit our country nor our communities. So that was my spiel for the day.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when it comes to, involvement with this, on the voting itself here, I know I get a lot of flack sometimes for saying, well, why talk about voting? We got serious issues going on. I consider voting the base level. If you can't even be bothered to vote, are you really going to be trusted to go and do all these other very important activist kind of things here? The answer is probably no. If you can't be asked to go out to a ballot box every, okay, at most a couple of times a year, but really for most people, they only think about every 4 years or maybe every 2 years. But for the most part, even if you can't even do that, I'm not really going to then tally you in the category of being able to be involved or things like that. But to your larger point there about these issues going on with it, yeah, as we talked about at the top of the show, the idea of, again, it's really been striking me ever since Uvalde in a very, very strange kind of way. It's just struck me as one of those smaller points being made there, that the way that their kind of emergency notification systems were active, but were largely being ignored by the people there because the amount of essentially crashes and ditches happening there of kind of what not exactly the same we're seeing here, because in that case, the entire point was to ditch the vehicle and then scatter out of it. But in this case, we keep seeing people, again, right across the street from us here, crash into a building, not necessarily on purpose, I don't think, but again, that's maybe why it's different. But the fact that this has been happening in aggregate feels like more, or at least to the next level from where it has previously. And the amount of stash houses that keep being put out in our area is, I mean, it's certainly concerning. I don't feel like anyone is going to say, nah, it's not really that big of a deal. I'm going to have several questions about their thought process on there. Because, yeah, if we don't focus on these things, we don't see anything happening with them, I don't see it getting better because, yeah, as much as I would love a full-throated, vociferous denial of it, it's going to take even more than just that to be able to deal with this as we are looking at the, end of a billion-dollar pipeline that comes right through our area and points all along the border.
Well, Andrew, the individuals who say stash houses aren't that big a deal, they should try asking a minor that's housed there how they feel about it. We have unaccompanied children there who have no control over their lives right now, except a smuggler, a trafficker, and the majority of these kids go into sex trafficking industry. So we got to care. If we are a humane society like they say we are, like Escobar says we are, then she should be concerned about these stash houses that have children in them, that have no control of their lives, don't know where they're going. 45,000 are lost in our system. Where's her concern about them? We need to be informed and we need to care because it's ruining our country. And more importantly, these children have a right to live and we're not allowing it. And our representative is an advocate for bringing these kids here and then just letting them go. And we don't know where, and she doesn't know where, and the government doesn't know where. And these poor children have lost their lives already just by the fact that they make it to the border and into a stash house. We have to care.
I mean, yeah, if there's not more response happening to this, we're going to keep getting more of the same, even as some of these, again, migration patterns, the way it's being put forth, continue to change there. And why we will continue focusing on it as much as we do and probably should do more on this program here. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. All right, I think we got time for at least one more call before we hit that next break. Again, if you wanted to get on the line, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Jerry on the northwest side of town here with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. I need to do a little correction for Barbara. The wall was built under President Trump, not President Biden.
Oh, yeah, of
So
course.
she said Biden, it was Trump.
Fair
I
enough.
know she confused. And to answer Frankie's question or his comment, economics is one of the major causes of civil unrest. And thankfully, Republicans are trying to keep us on economic good trail. Now, I do have a question for you, Andrew. You know that Joe Biden said that there was no more inflation in the month of July.
Or at least-
Correct? He claimed that.
No change
So
in
why-
it anyway.
Say again?
No change in it anyway from month to month.
Yes. So why are we passing a $3 billion or $3 trillion bill to correct inflation?
How much time you got here? I mean, we could fill the rest of the show to get into that.
I know the answer, Andrew. It was a kind of a rhetorical question there.
Sure.
But they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. I won't say the other part. Anyway, because they're lying to everybody. This new bill that they got coming out is not going to do us any good. It's going to put us more in the hole. And again, too much money out chasing too few goods causes inflation. Basic 101 economics. I learned that in the third grade. Okay. Most people should be able to understand that. I learned that in the third grade. That too much money causes, with chasing too few goods causes inflation.
Yeah.
And another thing with this bill that they have, it says it's for the environment, but there's caveats in that bill. If the batteries are not built, or portions of the batteries are not built in the United States or North America, they're not going to get those tax breaks or whatever the thing is to help them buy the vehicle, the electric vehicles. And that's just part of what's written into it. So they're lying to you, America. Again, they're lying to you. Thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Yeah,
You all have a good day.
Yeah, thank you very much for the point in the call. You have a good one there, too. All right, that's going to lead us to that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the calls in the line as we do during this point in the show. We have those phone lines open through the end of the hour, so if you're wanting to dial in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. And more comments that we'll get to, of course, on the social media here. Again, all that after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police and paramedics on the scene of an accident, McRae Boulevard at Wedgwood Drive, just north of the 10 Gateway. As an alternate, try Acer or Sumac to get around it. Pebble Hills eastbound at Joe Battle, an injury accident. That accident on Gateway North at Sean Haggerty is cleared up. And police still working on an earlier crash North Mesa Street at Mesa Hills. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
At One Day University, we feature hundreds of top-rated professors from Stanford, Harvard, Michigan, Texas, UCLA, and other schools across the world to explore history, music, politics, art, science, and much more. Every Wednesday, our weekly scholar newsletter includes short video clips of our most notable professors discussing fascinating topics, plus special reports and intriguing debates. Sign up for free at onedayu.com. That's ONEDAYU.com.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is a leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program, in which case we have that phone line open, among other things. So if you want to chime in that way, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. And a lot of issues, things we're discussing here. One point here that I realized I forgot to put on the list here, but, it's actually Tony Gonzalez was talking about here. Today does mark the 1-year anniversary since the withdrawal from Afghanistan under this administration, and does make a point there that if you are a veteran struggling, please call the Veterans Crisis Line at 988. Again, nationally available, particularly in our region, locally staffed, but available no matter when or how you call. 988. Just consider a companion to 911, 988. 8. Simple number to call to find out about mental health resources there. So getting back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast in the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, here's something local, something that occurred in front of the El Paso County Commissioners today, and that was my reading of the invocation. I'd like to read it. It's very short. It goes like this. Buenos dias, Judge and Commissioners. Gracias for the opportunity to deliver the invocation this morning. Sadly, tragically, we live in troubling times, violent times, perilous times. Most of us, luckily, lived through a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic. El Pasoans suffered the murder of 23 people while shopping by an incited xenophobic racist from Dallas. The worst thing that has ever happened in El Paso's history results from the American carnage of living in a deeply divided America with its warring tribes fighting culture and political wars. Sadly, tragically, we live in an America where few are safe anywhere, anytime, a country with 314 mass shootings so far this year. Democracy and representative government are also under attack. We lived through an unprecedented attack on our Constitution and Congress at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, an attack on the nation's leaders and representatives by some of the nation's leaders and representatives. And threats of violence to our elected leaders and election poll workers are at an all-time high. And now threats to federal law enforcement officers since the FBI's search of Mar-a-Lago. Some national security analysts fear stochastic terrorism and a guerrilla civil war. And according to a recent report from Freedom House, democracy in the U.S. has declined because of unequal treatment of people of color, the outsized influence of special interests in politics, and partisan polarization. These troubles we're facing were caused by humans, and paradoxically, our troubles are supposed to be solved by humans, the political and economic problem solvers, politicians and representatives such as you, with the help of people like us. There's a phrase in ancient Hebrew that means repair the world, and that world is Kul Olam. This mission of repairing the world is the same goal secular humanists pursue using Enlightenment principles of reason, logic, and science. Voter turnout has been historically low. I implore you to do all you can to work towards a more democratic, representative, and transparent government. Consult the experts on the subject. Investigate communities throughout the world for successful models of more democratic and representative governments, evidenced by higher voter turnout. Build on our shared love for the community, for the people of our community, for our Constitution, and for our democracy. Let's create a community where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, no matter where they were born, what they look like, or who they worship. Adelante.
That's a very interesting invocation, giving my understanding previously of the phrase, but okay. I'll say that particularly with some of your conclusions at the then end there, I'm not going to find much reason to disagree with you. The idea of having more political involvement, people being more a part of things, and particularly responding to community challenges, responsive there, kind of all of the major factors that I look for and would like to see in local government here, though, again, interesting statement there. And again, I'll just reiterate, we gave it a little bit of leeway in this case. Whenever we have anything being read or written statements that you want to submit to us, we, of course, have our email available, andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com. It's out there and available, and people send me various things, and I look at most, if not all of them, are spam filter acts up sometimes, but I try to respond to them here. Because, yeah, I guess we don't probably focus as much. It hasn't been quite as controversial, except in its own way, I suppose, when it comes to county commissioners, though we've, of course, covered some of those races and the candidates therein involved, and we'll be having more focus as we get closer to November. So it's an interesting way that you put it there. So I guess thank you for that reading.
You bet. And I encourage your listeners and callers to do the same.
All right. I mean, if people are able to give invocations here, going out to meetings, I know can be one of the more difficult parts because, a lot of people have like jobs and lives and things, and why also having them televised and available online is pretty important here. But I guess, yeah, appreciate the thought there. You have a good one. All right, trying to get at least one more call before we hit that next break right now. We do have Joe on the west side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Quick response to Raul. First of all, Raul, your gun control laws don't work. Look at Mexico. Your liberal solution to these mass shootings like the one in El Paso is gun control laws, and we all know what's going on in Mexico now where guns are totally illegal. My complaint, Andrew, is El Paso's lack of transparency, and it's the culture here, the way the government treats you. Whether it's school, I advocate for kids in schools all the time. And the kids in Gaston ISD and El Paso ISD, a lot of these Hispanic first-generation parents are afraid to confront the government because of retaliation. And yes, it does occur. Today, I was just trying to simply find out the restaurant reports. Like any other major city, you can go online and see what restaurants past the food inspection reports are failed, actually. The other cities put out the report cards from food inspectors. Here, they don't do it. I kept calling and calling, was eventually hung up on by Camille down at the health department. Okay, I just went down there and talked to the new director, and he's like, "Well, I'm new here. I don't know why. I don't know why." His name is Joe Romero, the director. I don't know why that's not there. I said, "Well, it used to be here in El Paso 4 years ago. Why isn't it there now?" And there's just no accountability. And the government here treats the people like crap. Overall, I've been pulled over a bunch here because I got a fast left foot, and I've been pulled over a bunch in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio. And the cops here are rude in general to the people. There's apathy here because of the way the government is, kind of oppressive here. And that's just the way it is. And my question I want to ask you is, I need the contact number to my city council person, because last time I tried to call, it was her 5 years ago. I couldn't even get through, and her voicemail box was full.
So being on the west side there, you're probably one of two representatives. It's either District 1 or District 8. District 1 is Peter Swarzbein, and his number, all of them are very similar, at least for the main office lines. They all start 915-212-100, and in this case, it's 1002. The other one that it could be would be Sissy Lizarraga, and her, again, the last digit of the number reflects which district it is. So in this case, it's 915-212-0008. Oh, they put an extra one in there somewhere? Okay, so they're not exactly the same here. So my apologies for that. I thought they were. So similar-ish in any case. And you can also find this information over on elpasotexas.gov, where they do have it available. And they have similar email addresses. I will definitely say that with, again, for District 1 at elpasotexas.gov and District 8 at elpasotexas.gov. Though it's also a finer point to be made. They, of course, have their offices at the City Hall, 300 North Campbell, El Paso, Texas 79901. And why, again, might not be the most convenient thing to ever do. You can, definitely at least try to find their staff in their audience. I will admit that there have been some previous ones, none currently sitting, if I'm not mistaken, that I had to go and actually talk with their front desk person in order to actually, make contact and do things. So I'm not saying it's simple, but I'm saying those are some of the ways you can try to go about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. You have a good one there as well. I will say that I haven't delved into it, but looking over at the City of El Paso's actual food establishment scores, they do supposedly have that available online, and you can look at it there. Maybe I'll have to delve into that ahead of next show. But what comes to mind there, if you're concerned about the transparency and the availability of it, is that what comes to mind more specifically is what happened in the midst of the pandemic when they were worried about, and contract tracing was still kind of a thing, when they're looking at specific incidents happening with exposure to the coronavirus and how they were not giving out the list of where those exposures had occurred, where they were being traced to, because of liability issues they're referring to back then. So I'm not saying it's directly connected, but it certainly comes to mind if we're not being fully transparent with the data out there. And more Price Watchdog stuff going on over in our comments. We'll get to more of the comments and more of the calls in line here as well. You, of course, tune into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Coming out of this break, more calls in line if you want to call in that way. That number to do so is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back with that, more calls, comments, all the good stuff that we do at this point during the program after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. One person is dead after an SUV crashed into a canal in El Paso's Upper Valley. Police say the driver of the SUV was speeding on Artcraft Road when it collided with a Border Patrol vehicle that was conducting a separate traffic stop. It happened at about 6 a.m. this morning. When agents caught up to the SUV, it was in a canal. A total of 8 people were involved in that chase that ended on Upper Valley Road. One person was dead on the scene. Another was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Chihuahua state health officials have confirmed today that 2 positive monkeypox cases have been confirmed in Ciudad Juarez. Officials say both cases are men whose ages are between 32 and 44. Health officials say that both men had a history of travel to Colombia and are said to be in stable condition. The first confirmed case of monkeypox was reported Friday in El Paso. This has been your KFOX 14 news update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso Freeway is looking pretty good for Monday so far. Southbound Memorial Highway at Pelicano, a vehicle's blocking the exit ramp. Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Lee Trevino, so some slowing there. It's basically a truck that's blocking the left shoulder. Montana Avenue eastbound at Geronimo, an accident reported, and an injury accident. Pebble Hills eastbound at Joe Battle. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We've been pretty quiet for the most part through the weekend and to start off the week, but things are about to take a real big change as we deal with some tropical moisture moving in from the southeast. This is going to increase our rain chances significantly through the week and decrease those temperatures. A weather warning is expected through the week as a result. Log on to kfoxtv.com for the latest radar and latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Right now, Crayola 24-count crayons and 4-ounce Elmer's glue are just 50 cents each, plus 1-inch binders are only $1.99. In-store only offer ends 8/26, limit 30. Don't send your kids back to school, send them forward at Staples.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Once again, we were El Paso's #1 dealer in new Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram sales in July. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas.
How did you do that again?
We have the best inventory and the best prices in town with exceptional trade-in values.
You heard the boss. Get big savings on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. Save thousands in interest with 0% APR for 72 months on new 2022 Dodge Chargers and Challengers. Plus, huge savings and super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on 2022 Ram trucks. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This a Summer event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $13.89 and 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the Borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday. Brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
This week, Red Pilled America delves into the story behind what really happened with President Nixon. Understanding the ignored truth behind his story reveals a dark mission you need to know about. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Now, the result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in through those ways. But of course, we also got that phone line open. If you're calling in like right before a segment or in the middle of one, might be put on hold for a brief amount there, but just be Johnny on the spot being by the phone because we might pop you up live. It is a live radio show after all here. So that number to call is 915-544-5876, 877-544-KTSM. And some commentary about how we talk about things here. Let me just say, I mean, there's a few, not necessarily like totally reliable things that we always go back to, but there are a number of recurring serious issues we do focus on here. So there's some conversation going on over in our comments section, particularly over on Facebook, more or less our main one, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. And this being said, the differences of opinion are okay. But if anyone's telling me that, yeah, you should stop talking about a certain thing, that's kind of more or less a pretty certain way I'm going to keep talking about it. Just saying. You ever thought about elephants or tried not to think about elephants? Yeah, go ahead and give it a shot here. I'm not saying I'm totally like that, getting all laser focused on it, but I'm also not saying that here. So you're entitled to your opinion, but we definitely get into interesting things here from time to time. And some more focusing on price increases. Kathy Codery saying a friend manages a local liquor store, and she said prices are going to increase by $3 to $5 depending on the brand and bottle size. Yeah, that will probably, I wouldn't be too surprised here. Well, it's a good thing that I've decided to stop drinking for good. I now drink only for evil. Anyway, getting back to those phone lines again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have a call on the line here right now with us. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Good afternoon, Andrew. This is Tony Westside.
Hey there, Tony.
I was trying to take a break, trying to rest, trying to take it easy, but my goodness, who's going to counter that cycle from the Northeast who's so filled with rage and hate? I mean, he's got murder in his heart. All he ever talks about is hate, and I have to call back and try to counter what he said. All these things about riots and war on I think it was on the elected officials. Yeah, threats on the elected officials and all. That's what was happening when Trump was trying to do his job for 4 years. Antifa was out there threatening and killing and burning and threatening and killing and burning. And now these people are so brainwashed. Some of these Democrats are so brainwashed that, to put it on in a nutshell, we knew for the last 50 years that Washington, D.C. was full of corruption. All of a sudden, one non-politician gets elected, and all of a sudden, everybody else in Washington is okay except Trump. I mean, what kind of mental illness is that, bro? What kind of brainwash is that? Please, it's almost like a fairy tale, a fantasy, a story, a science fiction story that these people are seething with hate. If they could get away with it, and I already know the murder's in their heart. They're already murderers because they would kill the Trump family if they had a chance. They hate them so much they can't see straight. So anyway, I just wanted to let the audience know all these things that gentleman who hates people, that guy full of hatred, our psycho, our client, our patient, if you will, for the psycho ward of the Trump hating syndrome. He's the emblem, he's the symbol, he's the poster child for the Trump deranged syndrome. All those things he said were happening when Trump was trying to do his job.
Yeah, when it comes to the different level of, all right, well, thank you for the point in the call there, Tony. I think I either disconnected or we lost him there. In any case, I mean, when we're talking about mass civil disruption, and I'm not just talking about civil disobedience. I mean, there's a level, being able to protest or go and, chain yourself to the White House, which I've seen people do. And that's a form of it and is definitely illegal. But hey, if that's how you want to, I don't, again, get the mentality of getting arrested just for the point of getting arrested, but there's a lot apparently I don't get in this life when it comes to certain mentalities here, so I'm not going to try to justify or explain that one. But I'm going to also draw a fine line between like purposeful and pointed protest, symbolic protest. There's that one lady who actually out in front of the White House, got to see it, was protesting nuclear weapons essentially for the last 30, 40 years. I think she either may have finally retired or even passed away. Actually, I know that she wasn't out there as much during the midst of the pandemic there, but literally they camped out pretty much each and every day and even overnight sometimes in front of the White House on that. That's one thing. And I find myself fully in favor of it because people making their voices heard, being out of there, ever so slightly important to us here on this program and the way we manage it. But when we're talking about riots, when we're talking about destruction, as much as there may be some truth to the phrase that a riot is the language of the unheard, those that simply want wanton destruction, damage, loss of life, all of those things without a point here. And the fact that once you start even getting into that as an official purpose of whatever organization you're part of, if that starts becoming the idea, you're going to attract quite a lot of ne'er-do-wells, because the idea of, well, we're just going to go and break stuff and nothing will happen to us. I mean, that would appeal, just be anecdotally, to a number of people who just want to do that anyway, regardless of the reason you're giving them. Point is, then we're talking about, comparing riots and, protesting and the different levels of it and what the ultimate damage of it is. And, also when it comes to elected officials, the idea that someone's bodily elimination might not stink. There's a different phrase that I want to use there, but can't on the radio. That when I do it, it's good, but when you do it, it's bad. Any of that kind of mentality is just, it's just messed up at its very base level. Because, I mean, the whole phrase, we can tell a politician is lying. Well, their mouth is moving. That's very persuasive to me still. But the idea that anything being done, again, it comes down to a whole lot of concepts we talk about more often than not on this program, such as if there's a power that you're terrified about your opponents being able to be used, but you're okay if you're in charge of it, maybe that power shouldn't exist, particularly when it comes to government here. And yeah, the swamp and the draining of it, or whether it happened or not, is certainly up for debate here, and whether corruption can ever truly be eliminated. But let's just say, I look at it even globally and historically, that those that have focused on being reformers, getting rid of corruption and making it less possible, tend to be regarded better, even in contemporary times, even if sometimes it only bears out that all they're doing is making it so the corruption directly benefits them. Any level of corruption is nigh unacceptable, but let's just say that there are definitely levels it achieves that if it starts impeding the ability of governance to happen. And note, I didn't say government there, because I know there are different theories on how governments, but that have even basic facilities happening, such as response, emergency responses, basic critical needs, roads, streets, utilities, etc. Those start being impacted, then we have gone beyond any semblance of usefulness on even the idea of lubrication of business here. And just on this whole thought, as it keeps coming up here, and yeah, this is more Friday territory, and we're of course here on a Monday, I just have to say it on that whole concept that keeps coming up of civil war that really disturbs me more often than not. Because on that whole concept of that being the reason, if you're not already voting, do you really think you're going to be that energized to go out and actually hold arms in a field? Because y'all see too many movies, basically. The idea that, go out and, crack some heads and we'll be done with it. Talk with any veteran ever and ask them how exciting their service was, and you will find out that it's either abject terror or hurry up and wait for the balance of it. It's not usually this righteous fury this whole time. It's a whole lot of boredom and then just awfulness. Those are the stories I've been told anyway, having never served myself, make no secret of that, but having dealt with and known a lot of prior service and military members, yeah, it's a critical need for that to be served here. But also the idea back on the idea of civil war, of it happening, the lines and how it would be drawn. Sure, in the last one, we had this nice north-south Mason-Dixon line divide, and it was done on a state-by-state basis. But given the fact that we are talking, for the most part, ideologically and not even regionally or state basis, it would be everywhere all the time. And that's one of the real terrifying aspects that I think people don't really consider when it comes to that level of discussion here. It's going to take us through that next break right now. Coming out of the break, we'll get to what we can, tell you what we got coming up for you next on the show, and definitely have some very big things coming up here. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. We'll squeeze in a call or two if we can. The number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Freeway's looking pretty good for Monday so far. Southbound Memorial Highway at Pelicano, a vehicle's blocking the exit ramp. Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Lee Trevino, some slowing there. It's basically a truck that's blocking the left shoulder. Montana Avenue eastbound at Geronimo, an accident reported, and an injury accident Pebble Hills eastbound at Joe Battle. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson Podcast.
Democrats declare war on all conservatives who doubt the FBI, now claiming you're a domestic terrorist. Coming up on the Ben Ferguson Podcast, we'll look at the Mar-a-Lago raid and why it may have been illegal. Download the Ben Ferguson Podcast now.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Staples has everything for school at great prices. So this year you won't go back to school. You'll be ready to move forward with all your school printing from Staples.
Okay, class, refer to the seating chart for your desk assignment. Class? But we can't read yet.
Don't worry, they'll get there. Now get 30% off school-related prints when you spend $25 or more. This year, go forward to school with Staples. In-store only, exclusions apply. One coupon per customer ends 8/27. Visit staples.com/school printing for coupon and requirements.
Asthma symptoms can attack anywhere, like on a city street. Now you can get fast relief anywhere with new improved Primatene Mist, the only FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. So whether you need relief of symptoms at the park or at your kitchen table, Primatene Mist starts working quickly, opening up your airways to restore free breathing. For temporary relief of mild symptoms of intermittent asthma, use Primatene Mist and breathe easy again. Available at CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens. Use as directed.
Because everyone deserves excellent medical care, El Paso has its own free community medical clinic. RotoCare is a free walk-in clinic located at 301 South Schutz Drive and is devoted to improving the health of all El Pasoans, including those without insurance or legal documentation. RotoCare is open most Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. For more information, call 790-0700. RotoCare, because everyone deserves excellent medical care.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. We've covered a lot of ground here today. A lot of comments have coming in. If anyone's ever confused, we never even get to probably about half of them that come in here because they do come in pretty fast and furious in the discussions that happen on their own right over on our Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on pretty much all of those arenas here, such as Mando Moncada saying abolish the IRS, disband the FBI, and the idea of peace, the debate about protest, Taliban independence getting discussed here. James Radcliffe with a very interesting point as well. That the Civil War, people were forced to take up arms whether they liked it or not. A couple ways that can be taken. What comes to mind here, among other things, was actually not even just on the individual level, but even on the state level, particularly within the Confederacy itself. A lot of forces were tied up in different states, either forces or remnants of National Guards, often called National Guards in a lot of ways. And the idea of them having to fight out of their own state boundaries was very distasteful to them. There was actually something that essentially the Confederate command had a lot of problems and difficulty doing, was in trying to centralize the command, because the entire idea of each state doing its own thing, sure, I mean, has a certain political viability to it, but in terms of actual conflict, not as much. But also the idea of people being forced into a brother against brother. Anyone who thinks that the Civil War was a splendid little war is the phrase that sticks with me. It doesn't really refer to the Civil War, but in general, that any war could be a splendid little war with no impact coming from it is just delusional. That's just what it comes down to. I need you to talk to someone who's actually served in a combat zone overseas and ask them about how splendid it was, because as much as we think that war can be happening remote controlled, I know that, yes, in terms of domestic issues, often the idea that is put forth is, well, it'll just be something that will be done, with drones and taken out remotely. None of that's really going to happen, at least not that way. Sure, maybe initially, but as much as what has been shown by the conflict in Ukraine and also what's going down in Mexico right now, the idea of anything being quick, simple, and done forthwith is a fairy tale at best. Anyone telling you that it would be that way is probably trying to sell you something, their book, their services, or buying your life in the long run here. Kathy Gorgie putting it very well that war only enriches the elites. Soldiers live with the effects of wars here, and a whole lot more of it. Point is that I'm really getting to here is that if you think that that is the only solution, there's no political solution left, and you're not doing everything before that, how involved do you think you'll actually be if it comes down to that? And frankly, you're just sitting on your hands until it came to that point. I gotta say, given the amount of apathy that we have in this community and in this country as a whole, that may be changing to a certain slow extent, but only have real firm numbers I can look at here locally. If you feel it all this way and you're not doing anything, organizing, utilizing, I often was very enamored of Les Miserables, both the musical and the book, once I got old enough to read it here, as, this real kind of fervor that it brought to me. This idea of, this revolutionary spirit, dealing with the powers that be, taking them down. Yeah, like it really, got me fired up as a young man. And then growing up and going back and like rereading, rewatching these things, all I am left and is struck with, I mean, sure, there's a lot of narratives within that whole thing, but struck by the idea that, man, those guys were kind of idiots. Unfortunately, thinking that they will take this huge symbolic stand and everyone will work with them. And both in history and in the narrative there, it just kind of didn't happen. And so they were crushed and quashed, and their cause and goal ultimately scattered because they didn't do very basic things such as organize, strategize, have connections, block captains, any of that kind of thing here. So that's why I further say, if you think that something's just going to happen, you'll take part in it, and you'll be able to go back to your home and everything will be fine. Living in a fairyland is, you're completely out of touch with reality there. And why we'll talk about that among other things, but also the many other things, some of the things we're working on for you, a little bit more maybe about some of those situations involving local economy for sure, but also local prosecution, what's going on with cases being dismissed. We'll delve more into that. Maybe bring you a little bit more about some of those restaurant things, because we had that question about that. Follow up with you on that. Then specifically tomorrow, there is going to be a large art project getting installed in the downtown area, already starting this week. So we'll have an interview on that, what's coming there. And of course, can add your 2 cents on it, as we always do, and a whole lot more, including checking with our news partners and a whole lot more. In any case, I want to thank you all for having tuned in here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. We'll do it again as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. So thank you all for tuning in, for commenting, calling in, however you have done so. That participation is what really makes this work in my mind, and hopefully we can keep dealing with these issues. So in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Joe Battle Boulevard, northbound at Pebble Hills, a multi-vehicle accident there is blocking the right turn only lane. Stay to the left. Southbound on the Loop Memorial Highway at Pelicano exit, a vehicle is blocking the exit ramp. East Overland Avenue at South Campbell towards downtown, an injury accident. And another crash with injuries, East Paisano Drive, eastbound south of the 10 Gateway at Rosa Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690, KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up.
He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing.